Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Today's video conversation will be about D1, Division One academic requirements for student athletes. It applies specifically to high school kids, whether you're a sophomore, freshman, senior, junior, depending on where you are in the process. The channel altogether will have series around decision making for kids who are on the back end of their career, who need to make decisions about school, where to go to school, and some things that factor into that decision, and also kids who are in college who need to develop some strategies and have information and resources around how to be successful off the field and outside the lines. We're going to talk about a variety of subjects, whether it be academics, mental health, organization, planning, cultural impacts, decision making, relationship building. So there's going to be something for everyone. Every segment won't apply to everyone depending on where you are in your career and what you're doing, but I think it'll be a good resource for those who are in the academic and athletic space and are making decisions and on their journey for that. So please subscribe and comment and ask any questions or comments you like to let me know what you think and how we're doing. I'm excited to do this. I've been working in this space for a while now as a recruiting coordinator, a coach, working with parents to help their kids make decisions about school and some critical um, pathways that really matter. We work hard as athletes to train and prepare. You go to games, of course, practice, training, film session, weightlifting, camps, combines, all these things. You get offers, but it won't matter if you're not academically prepared to take advantage of that opportunity. There's a lot of great resources out there for community for getting recruited, um, drills, and all those things, and they're very important. It's critical to their development, but I really want to work in a space where help kids prepare themselves to take advantage of the full opportunity. Like I said, personally, I played high school football, JUCO football, and I got a scholarship to a Pac-10 school. So I've been in this space before. I've been recruited. I understand what it is. I have three boys who are playing football now. One graduated from college in 2022. I have another that's a freshman now in college, and one who's a freshman in high school coming up, making these decisions, preparing as well. So it's excited to work in this space and work with people. I wanted to bring it to this platform to reach more people and be a resource. Coaches, counselors, academic counselors, school counselors do a great job of articulating what's needed around academic eligibility, but it's a full time job for you to stay on top of that and make sure you're in the right place at the right time. You don't want to get on the back end of your high school career and find out that you missed something along the way. So it's important. Many times you'll have these conversations in group settings or auditoriums, big places where you can't really write down what you need or it's going kind of fast. You want to be able to refer back to it. This will be an opportunity for you to have that information for you, to have some conversation with your counselors and coaches and really prepare for that by taking ownership of your career and your future. And this is a big part of that. Academic preparation starts early. Ninth grade matters. Parents, we work hard for our kids to go to school. So we want to be as informed as possible to help them make the right decisions and plan to get there. We're all busy, but it's critical to really be in a position that you want to be in over time. We'll talk about eligibility here. We'll talk about who the Ncaa is on this conversation, um, what classes you need to take, why it matters, all of that. So I'm looking forward to it. Um, and let's jump right in. Here's just my Twitter information, email, any questions, or you can follow me, and I'm posting things there as well. Um, Basically, what I'm going to focus on is really communicating my experience as a parent in this space and as a coach and recruiting coordinator about some of the experiences that I've had information that I've gained over the years, really to help kids and parents be successful moving forward. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Um, what I'm using here is a platform called Padlet. It's a good way to break down um, categories for conversation. So I'm going to use it. We're going to create basically work in this space as a conversation, like I'm sitting in front of you in your living room, right, at the table or outside in an office, right. Keep it real informal and just really kind of walk through some of the things that are important and kind of what we're doing and what's going on. I'm going to scroll up here, go to the top. The NCAA. Now, again, some people already know this information, but we're going to act as though or assume that there are obviously some who don't. So we're going to be repetitive in some spaces for some people. But the NCAA is an organization, dedicated to the well-being and lifelong success of student athletes. It is really the governing body for student athletes uh, at the collegiate level. Right? There's other groups, right? Like the NAIA, which is another organization that governs another set of schools, and of course there's the NJ. I think it's the NJCAA, which governs the junior colleges, right? Some of the junior colleges, 2-year schools. But the NCAA has thousands of student athletes that participate in 3 divisions: Division One, Division Two, and Division Three. I think it's 24 sports, 90 championships. So you see some of the facts here. Big schools like Ohio State, Oregon, uh, Fresno State, USC, UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma, all these schools, NCAA schools, those are Division One schools. You also have some smaller D schools, D1 schools like Colgate, Lafayette, Lehigh. Those are Patriot League schools, of course, and Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, right? But these D1 requirements that we're going to talk about today apply to those schools. You also have Division Two schools, which often are a little smaller schools. The requirements are a little bit different. We'll talk about that in another conversation. And then we have D3 schools, which are smaller schools. A lot of them are really academically oriented, but they play football, basketball. It could be a great experience for your kids. Um, they're well funded, strong schools, so that's a good conversation and consideration too, as well as you move forward. Um, the NCAA, like I said, is the governing body for athletics that we're going to be talking about today. I'm just going to scroll through some of that, right? And here's the breakdown of the divisions that I talked about earlier. Um, D1 generally has the biggest student bodies, manage the largest athletic budgets, and offer the highest number of athletic scholarships. D2 provides a growth opportunities through academic achievement, learning and high level athletic competition, and focus on service to the community. And of course, D3 experience offers participation in a competitive athletic environment that pushes college athletes to excel on the field and build upon their potential by tackling new challenges across campus. Now, that's language that the NCAA kind of puts out, right? But the divisions are based on a few things: size of the school, funding, the facilities there, educational priorities, mission. A lot of those things factor into the divisions that schools participate in and what sports. Every school doesn't offer every sport, but that's kind of the breakdown. And usually, the schools, oftentimes that you see on Saturday, these big games like Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, those are all D1 schools, right? High level, right? Competitive. So if you want to prepare yourself for schools like that, right? If that's kind of your target, there are some things that you need to do, right? There's classes you need to take, and there is, levels of achievement that you need to make, basically. Um, Academic requirements for NCAA eligibility purposes are different from what you need to graduate. Two separate things. You could be on track to graduate high school, but don't have what you need to be NCAA eligible. We're going to talk about that here today. Also, there's a third level, say what the schools want to see to be academically competitive. So, for instance, if you have a Harvard or a Yale or in these academic institutions, they may require something else as a bottom threshold to be competitive for admission, right? Now, if you're a student athlete, if you qualify and you have the grades, you're generally in a good space. But I like to prepare the students for success, whether they get a scholarship or not, right? Control your destiny, control your future. And you want to be prepared for any opportunity. And there's plenty of academic opportunities outside of athletic scholarships that you can take advantage of if you're ready and you're prepared academically, right? You can train, you can be recruited, and still not make it there if you don't focus on this stuff that we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited to kind of be here um, and share this information with you. Um, like I said, it's a lot, and we're going to talk about a lot of subjects. But today, in this conversation, we're going to focus on the academic requirements, and I'll break it up too to make it a little bit more manageable in terms of timing. All right, so I'm going to click on this Eligibility Center link. And again, guys, I'm not going to heavily edit this because, there's a lot of time with that, and I really want it to be more about the conversation. And as we grow, we'll get to that. I'm backing up a little bit here. Get this lined up. All right, so you know what is the NCAA Eligibility Center, right? It's a unit inside the NCAA offices, that entity, right? That certifies and evaluates college-bound student athletes for competition in D1 and D2 sports. D3 schools don't require certification, but D1 and D2 schools do, right? And there's levels of certification that we'll talk about based on kind of how you do academically and what you've taken. Um, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So, the eligibility center focuses on academic preparedness, student participation, high school courses, and customer service. Meaning academics participate. You're going to be able to certify that you are an amateur. You're supposed to be an amateur when you enroll in school and play in college athletics, right? There's certain courses you need to take, and of course the service component. So um, all those things are part of what they do, their mission. All right. Now we know the NCAA has tens of thousands of student athletes, right? And this center, as you see here on the screen, and this number may move up a little bit depending on where we are year to year, but it has 200,000 college-bound student athlete accounts annually. Those are all the kids in all the sports that are logging in, setting up accounts to certify to play in school, right? You got to be certified to get a scholarship, to practice, and to compete in a game, right? 100,000 certification accounts, 8,000 international students, 20,000 high school calls, 1,100 member schools and universities, 32,000 high schools, 29,200 plus cleared. So that's just like a stat for those guys, right? Let's scroll down here. These are some of the folks. I don't know if they're still there, but this is some of the staffing. Keep going here. All right, this is what I wanted here. There's two type of accounts that you need to set up or that you can set up, right? This is something that the parents and the kids have to do, right? Or somebody. that you trust, that you rely on for these type of things to do, right? You set up a profile page, right? This is something that you do, we'll look at a little bit later. They say 10th grade is a good start time. Me and my family, we started in the ninth grade just to kind of get going. It doesn't take a lot of time to set it up. And it's a tool that you're going to be working in for years in terms of checking status, make sure your classes are in there. You're going to be uploading some stuff. You're going to be answering questions. And the schools you've attended or school you do attend will upload things as well. And you're working toward getting certified, cleared. And that's going to happen moving forward, right? So this profile page, as you see, says students who are not being actively recruited, the young girls and guys, right? D3 students, right? You don't need a certification account. So if you're just going to be D3 player, you do that, right? It's free, right? So it basically has your account information and your school history. You won't receive an academic or amateurism certification. That's for the certification account. And then, once you start this account, you can always transition over to the cert account, certification account, right? That certification account is for D1 and D2 students, prospective student athletes, right? There's a fee around that. There's a $90 fee. Um, you can request a waiver that has to come through your school. Generally speaking, if you receive some sort of waiver requirement or request or approval for your test scores like ACT, SET, you may qualify for a waiver. So, hey, it's $90. So, definitely look into it. You're going to talk about your account information. You're going to put account information in. That's just basic personal data, um, and your school and sports history. Required for signing an NLI, which is National Letter of Intent, or to play at any D1 and D2 school. Right. Required to go on any official visit to any NCAA Division One or two school. Right. So it's important. Right. It's a step. So I think when you look at your planning, it's a step that you want to just kind of move on. You don't want to wait to the back end and you get, super busy and you start getting overwhelmed. So kind of, get on that. Right here, this is a table that reflects a GPA. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit for you. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this because this is really a GPA scale that correlates, you see, just say, for instance, you had a 3.5. With that GPA, your SAT score could be a 400, right? But since we're in the state now where we have alternative certification, alternative standards, those SAT and ACT scoring requirements are not a part of the eligibility process. So you don't have to take that test to be certified. Now, many people take it to be academically competitive, right? So if you don't receive a scholarship and you're certain, you're going for a certain school, if you want to be more competitive, and you think you're going to do well, many choose to take that test, right? So it's there strategically. If you think it's important, that's a family decision, of course. But for certification purposes, you don't have to. You don't have to do that, right? We're going to get into this on another screen, but it's basically saying, complete 16 NCAA approved courses in specific subjects. You got to graduate on time. You earn a minimum GPA of 2.3 and all that, right? So this is kind of, what they put out, but the game has changed a little bit, right? So I'm going to go back to our main screen. Now, this next section, core course timeline, it'll talk about, your year to year targets, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. Um, so, we'll get into that a little bit. Let me scan up here. Um, what I like to say before we get into this is that, grades matter, right? We know that. But I tell kids when we talk, I say, look, you want to do, I know it's a stressful time, right? You're putting a lot of time in to do what you need to do, but the goal should be to do the best that you can. best you can. And whatever that works out to be is what it is. But I'm an avid believer in manifestation. You're going to get to where you want to go, right? You deserve it. It's going to happen. And we're going to just put that out there in the universe, right? You're going to get it. So do the best you can, prepare, make good decisions in school, outside of school, in your community, and you're going to be successful because you work hard for that. So we're going to put that out there. Right? Now, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. This is what we touched on earlier. To play D1 sports, D1 or D2 sports, you must graduate from high school, right? Compete, complete 16 NCAA approved core courses, earn a minimum GPA. And here, of course, they talk about the SAT thing, what we talked about that's not applicable at this point, right? Core courses. A lot of parents say, that sounds good, Greg, but what really is a core course, right? Core courses are college prep courses that prepare you for college, taught by a certified instructor, right? NCAA approved, right? So when you talk to your counselor, you let them know, say, hey, I want to make sure I'm on track to be certified for athletic participation. You're a freshman, sophomore. They've heard this before. They may say, hey, you gonna play college? Hey, it's early, but you're on it, right? You're grinding, you're putting in the work. You want to make it happen. You want to get out the house. You want to go to school. You're excited. This is one of the steps you need to take, right? Parents, you want them out to do your thing, right? We're gonna miss them. We love them, but this is important, and it saves us a lot of headaches on the back end if we jump on that. Now I have some notes here now, so I'm going to kind of refer to some of those things. Again, we got a lot of information here, so um, but looking at this chart here, so Division One, right? We talked about 16 courses. Right here it says, complete 10 NCAA core courses, including 7 in English, math, or natural physical science before the seventh semester. What is the seventh semester? That's the first semester of your senior year, right? There's ways you can certify early, be an early qualifier. We'll get into that later. But if you're on the traditional trajectory, this is kind of what you're shooting for, right? D1, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, algebra 1 or higher, right? Natural science, physical science, including a lab if offered. In this additional category is a 1 year deal, right? English, math, or natural science. So when you take your classes, a lot of your classes, it may say, just say if you took 4 years of math, you don't need 4 years to be certified, right? So 3 of those years you will put right here in your math bucket. That bucket is complete. That fourth year of math will satisfy this bucket, right? So you're going to take more than 16 classes in high school. So you're going to have some flexibility on where they go, right? And when you plan it out, you will see it starts to drop in nicely, particularly when you start early, right? Your high school requirements for graduation are again different from certification requirements, but many of them serve both purposes. So you want to be strategic when you take your classes. You don't want to be too aggressive and put too much work on yourself because it's difficult, right? To compete, work hard. Life is hard. You're busy. School is tough. So don't be too aggressive, but be strategic in what you want to do and have a plan and kind of figure out what's needed to get where you want to go, right? And that's a personal decision with the family and your counselor and kind of work through those things, right? And just for reference, you see the D2 requirements. Just look at English, for instance. 3 years, right? They want 3 years of English, whereas in D1 they want 4. Right? A little different. 2 for math as opposed to 3. 2 and 2 for the sciences are still the same, right? So these numbers move around a little bit depending on where you plan on going. Um, but from an opportunity standpoint, you may want to shoot for Division One just to say you can have all your buckets kind of and boxes covered for that opportunity when it comes. That sliding scale refers to that SAT, ACT, GPA matrix that I showed you earlier. So that doesn't really apply here. Test scores, again, that's a process to get those scores sent to the eligibility center with that code. But if you're not going to take that test, that doesn't apply here. And of course, your GPA requirements. Now, from a timeline perspective, there's certain expectations that you have based on your grade, right? Let me plug in here so I won't lose juice. So if you're a freshman, right, you're in the planning stages, right? Often these schools don't require you, or your high schools won't tell you to really start registering until you get to 10th grade, but you can do it in the ninth grade. There's no reason that you have to wait if you want to get on top of that, right? So you go in there and you set your account up, and you're ahead of the game. Grade 10, again, you're in the system, you're ready to go. If you find yourself struggling in school grade wise, and you're falling behind and you're kind of trending off schedule, and you just think, hey, I may not hit that number I need, talk to your counselor about that and figure out a plan and a strategy. Be proactive on that and figure out a strategy to kind of get you back on track, right? Because it happens, things happen, right? um, but you want to definitely be, in the conversation. Again, 11th grade, same thing. Making sure your classes are where they're supposed to be. You should be popping into that portal, every few months or so, every quarter, whatever your timing is, just to kind of see where you are. Um, but the most important thing is really taking the right classes and getting the grades you need to get. Right? Grades are important, as we talked about a little bit earlier, but all grades aren't created equal. You may see some kids who are applying to school who have a 3.9, right? 4.0, even higher than that. And someone has a 3.3. And you may think, well, I'm not as competitive academically as that person. That's not the case, right? Schools take a holistic approach to academic admissions, right? So other things do matter, right? So you are competitive in other spaces. An example will be, you may have a student who has a 4.0 who has a more traditional high school experience, right? They play sports, they go to school, life is good, right? Good time of life. But then you have other kids who are in school, taking the same classes, but they may be taking care of their little sister after school because their parents work the third shift, right? They go to work from 3 to 12, right? Life stuff. So you got to feed him or her, help with their homework, play with them. They're walking around talking, whatever kids do. So that cuts into time you can really focus on, academics, but yet you're still thriving and doing well. That has value, right? You have some kids who work. You may be working 5 hours a week in addition to going to school. So I only have a 3.2, 3.0. And you look at the scale of some of these schools, you say, man, the average GPA is a 3.9. All these kids have a 4.0. Don't let that discourage you, right? The experience you have getting through high school is part of your story, and that'll factor into your story when you apply to schools, right? Now, again, if you're a scholarship candidate, some of these things don't necessarily factor into you getting a scholarship or not, of course. But again, you want to be competitive and prepared to get into school if that ends up being your choice without someone giving you a scholarship, right? Don't put all of your eggs in that basket, would be my suggestion and recommendation. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and we'll talk about those things in further conversations. But you want to be strategic, right? A little bit of effort to make sure you have a plan. It takes a lot of pressure off you when you get to the back end and you say, hey man, the only way I'm going to go to school is if I get a scholarship. No, there's other ways to do it, right? There's other paths to get to where you want to go. There's not just one road to get to where you want to go. So these are the things that we'll talk about here continually, um, and really kind of help you keep that plan going as you move forward. All right. So again, here's a 4 times 4. That's just the math. 4 and 4, every grade, every year, kind of what you're doing. So it's pretty straightforward there. If you fall short of these numbers, you may end up being qualified in another division, right? Division two, right? Or um, you may not end up being a full qualifier. So we'll talk about those things later. So I'm going to pop over, and we'll continue this with the next segment.